An EFP acronym stands for Environmental Farm Plan, and it stands for a self-assessment of a risk of an operation and management of an agricultural enterprise. An EFP promotes water quality and conservation because one of the key elements is water from the farm plan. So the chapters that have to do with farmyard sites and even field groups have a lot to do with surface and groundwater, and that relates to everything from livestock use of water, domestic use, things like septic tanks in fields, how animals and crops are managed so that contaminants don't reach a water body or a water source.
In order to maintain that quality, the best way to do it is to keep the riparian area around your dugout or dam in a good condition. It keeps all the contaminants from going in the water. And one of the ways of doing that is to do an off-site watering system, which in my case we use a solar power unit, and we pump the water away from the dugout. And actually animals like to keep their feet dry, so they'll actually walk around the dugout even though it's not fenced and go to the water trough to get a drink. You wouldn't believe it would happen, but it does happen.
An environmental farm plan would benefit the individual farm producer or farm family, or it could be a corporate agricultural enterprise as well. So that'd be the primary benefit, in that the self-assessment would bring an awareness to kind of their minds as to what kinds of things they could deal with or do better. Everything from crop management, so that they had less soil loss, so they had ways and means of dealing with things like manure management, storage, confined livestock operations, that kind of thing. But also it benefits society in general, because by going through a risk assessment for a farm business on an individual or farm family basis, when practices are changed, water quality improves, water availability improves, because in many cases then there's water conservation also involved. Soil stability in terms of less erosion and soil loss, so that improves soil conservation. And then there are actually some chapters on things that pertain to food safety and quality. So society in general would benefit from an individual or farm family doing a farm plan.
Water allocation in southern Alberta in this area is based on how much water we get throughout the year and that sort of thing. The allocation, we probably use 65 to 70% of the total water that is allotted to this area, keeping in mind that we have to send 50% to Saskatchewan in the first place, so it becomes 65 to 70% of a 50%. So, which seems less, but agricultural takes a lot of water to use. We can use, on a dry year, we had 2001, we were allocated 10 inches of water per acre. We could have used probably double that amount because it was a dry year. The best way of irrigating right now is the center pivot system. So what you do is you have a center pivot. Most of them are on a quarter base, and a quarter being 160 acres, so your pivot will do 132 acres. So what we do is we pump the water to the middle of the quarter, we put up the middle of the system, and it's sort of like putting a pin in the ground and putting a string around, and your string goes round and round, which is basically what a pivot system does. Most pivots right now use a low pressure system. I'd say the most popular sprinkler system is probably rotators, and you're probably running about 20 psi, which is quite low. You can get sprinkler systems that go down to 6 to 8 psi, which reduces energy consumption. With the pivot system, you're able to control the amount of water in each circle. You can go anywhere from just a little splash of water, say a tenth, or you can go on and put 1.5 inches of water on. When you have converted to low pressure, you get rid of the wind drift. You're down from a 65% efficiency rating with the old ones to about an 80 to 85% efficiency rating of getting the water to actually into the ground. That's probably the most efficient, is just the sprinkler system itself. Once you have water ordered, you have to use it. It takes up to 24 hours for the irrigation district to adjust levels on the water. So usually you irrigate as needed. There have been several attempts to water during the night, and they've had very success of that. They'll start at say 7 o'clock at night and go till 7 in the morning. The other portion is that electricity use is cheaper at that time of day too. So you can do a double. It's a win-win situation if you're able to do it, but the bad part is you have to have a reservoir that's big enough to hold the water for the whole 24 hours if you're only going to pump for 12 hours.
A farm operator that has completed a plan, if they choose to, they can apply for cost sharing up to 50% of a project that they want to have done. So if they wanted to keep livestock off of creek bottoms, if they wanted to do something with manure storage, composting, they could apply for funding on a cost share basis to help them complete a project.
A lot has been going on with computerization of irrigation. Right now we have computerized panels at center. These computerized panels, you can start and slow your pivot up anywhere on the field. You can put on a 1/2 inch in one section and maybe 2/10 in another section and speed all by programming the computer panel. One thing the computer panel will do, you can stop and start and check the status of your computer all on your cell phone. So I can be in Calgary and I can use my cell phone, type in the pivot I want to start up, and I can do it all the way from Calgary. I do have a new thing out now. It's called variable rate irrigation, and what it does is I can take a section of the pivot, say 1 or 2 spans, and I can actually stop those pivots now. If I go over a slough with it, I can stop those sections of the pivot, wait until the pivot's gone over, and then I can restart them, and the pivot will keep on going. So I'm putting the water where it's needed, and I'm stopping the water where it's not needed at that point in time. Probably the next best thing, they're just starting to do it here, is they're actually putting soil moisture monitors in the ground. So the pivot, and they're tying it into the computer panel, and they're actually having it so the pivot will read that, and it'll start up automatically when the moisture is needed for the crop.
The contact for completing an environmental farm plan or just getting information could be through 310 Farm, and that's an Alberta Agriculture toll-free line, and they will give you the name of a technician or a resource assistant in a regional area that you can then contact, and they would come out to the farm, do a farm visit, or you could meet in an MD office or county office and start your farm plan workbook. So the technical assistance really relates to how to complete each section of the workbook or each chapter. And oftentimes there's questions on why do I have to have a distance between where my water source is and where my septic field is. And so then the reasons can be explained that the closer the distance, the higher the risk of contaminating your domestic water for your household use. And so all those kind of questions can be answered by a resource or technical assistant.
Opinions on water quality have changed quite a bit. We're much more diligent in how we use the water. Everybody is more informative. You can go onto a computer now and you can find in a matter of seconds or minutes what everybody's using and water's allocated. We're coming to realize that there's going to be more people on the land. We're going to have to make better use. With the water moratorium in the southern part of Alberta right now, you become well aware. Over the years, being that we are in the dry part of Alberta, we have always found a real value for water because there are years when we don't have it. So when you do have water, you become very appreciative of that type of water. And your knowledge from those dry years makes you a better user of that water.